This is Cody Holt coming to you at about 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time out here in California, where it is yet another beautiful day. Looks like about 90 degrees out there. Fantastic weather. Looking forward to enjoying one more week of this before I have to head back to the frozen tundra of Northern Virginia, which I suppose isn't that bad. They haven't even had snow yet, but it's still not California. I'm still enjoying my Christmas break, but it's kind of on its last legs now. Big story today is the caucus, the Iowa caucus, the Hawkeye caucus. Yesterday and last night, the winners being announced, or the partial winners, I guess. Romney takes 8 votes over Santorum, 30,015 to 30,007, making Romney the winner, but by just that much. I mean, let's accept the fact that we just assumed Romney was going to win this anyways, or was going to be one of the top contenders. If we take him out of the picture, this is a huge win for Santorum, who'd been polling rather lowly. I mean, this basically defies the Iowa numbers I've been looking at, which had been about 16%. Romney and Paul had 22 and 21, and Paul finished relatively close to the top two, but still, this was his chance to make some kind of national statement, and he was not able to do it. Already we're seeing the fallout from the Iowa caucuses, which is Bachmann dropped this morning, saying that she wasn't able to go on. It should be interesting to see, as far as she goes, who she's going to throw her support to, and if we can establish some kind of a not Romney candidate that we'd be able to take all the way to nomination. Perry headed back to Texas with his tail between his legs. He says he's reevaluating his campaign, but then later today, according to the AP, he tweeted, "Here we come, South Carolina." So we're just as confused about Perry as we always have been since he entered the race, to great fanfare, which eventually, not necessarily eventually actually, rather quickly flopped, with the crowning moment being oops on national television. But the big question I had going into this was, what exactly was a caucus? Because I understood what a primary was. Being from California, we have primaries, and they usually don't matter because by the time we get around to us and the crazy Tuesday madness, Super Tuesday, and they moved a few even farther ahead. We're now in June, which makes us even more irrelevant. Fantastic. There's usually only 1 or 2 candidates left, and it's pretty obvious which one it's going to be. But a caucus is a little bit different. Rather than a primary where everyone comes and votes on ballots like a normal election, everyone comes together in school, assembly hall, or even people's living rooms and talk about the party platform, talk about the future of the Republican Party, and then representatives from each campaign are allowed X amount of time to talk. Then they vote on white sheets of paper, just write the name on there. At least in Iowa, that's how they do it. They don't normally pass out ballots. They did a little bit in 2008, but they weren't supposed to do it, at least not this year. And then from there, they choose representatives who go to county caucuses, who then choose representatives and vote, and choose representatives to go on to the district caucuses, and then choose representatives to go on to state. State chooses representatives to go to national. So that's how they end up choosing the representatives for the national convention, the delegates that go there, that end up giving the votes that each candidate will get. So this isn't really a winner takes all. Just because Romney got 30,015 votes and Santorum got 30,007 votes doesn't necessarily mean they're the winners, in that they could have taken individual districts or individual precincts by storm, but other precincts left untouched. That was one of Ron Paul's biggest problems, is he had a lot of support in small areas, so he's not going to be able to carry the state. So this isn't really anything that carries over to the choosing the candidates so much as it is indication of the direction the election will be taking from now. Dismal results from, say, Perry. Bachmann already acted on those dismal results. She dropped. Perry's either going to have to start pumping cash into New Hampshire and take that state by storm, which is what Huntsman is trying to do. Huntsman's got all his eggs in one basket over there in New Hampshire, or he's going to have to drop and throw his support to a Santorum, or even Newt Gingrich, who also had dismal showings, but nowhere near as bad because he was polling that low after his really weird spike that he had. If you look at the numbers, Real Clear Politics is the best place to go for the averages. If you look at the numbers there, it's kind of funny to watch as his peak really was in response to Herman Cain dropping out. And then people realized that it's a bad idea to go from one person we're worried about indiscretions, and our solution is to run to Newt Gingrich. Not a good idea. The biggest lesson we learn from the Iowa caucuses, or Hawkeye, whatever the plural of caucus is, cockeye, cacti, something like that, is that Romney is vulnerable. If you look at the poll numbers, and I had a friend point this out to me the other day as we were talking about this, if you look at the poll numbers, everyone's gone up and down but Romney. Romney has stayed at a flat 20 to 22% the entire time, which means that there is a not Romney faction that is split among the not Romney candidates. Now, how that's going to be divided up depends on how long people stay in the race. And when people drop, who throws the support to who? Where are Bachmann's supporters going to go? That's the biggest question. Is Bachmann going to try to cut a deal with one of the lesser candidates now? Or is Bachmann going to try to throw her weight toward even a Mitt Romney where she thinks she can get inside the administration, even if it means risking her losing her support from people she's following because she's supporting Romney, who's the moderate. That's not really her type. But I think for Bachmann's sake, she better think hard and long about who she picks, because Santorum's peak means next to nothing as far as national play out, because Iowa is a very conservative state anyways. It's going to be very hard for him, not her, to make anything happen on a national stage still. He's got a long uphill climb, and he's going to have to take this state by state. Bachmann throwing her support to him, let's be honest, Bachmann just doesn't carry that much weight. But what she does carry is a certain amount of the percentage of the polls that she could throw to him that would get her followers to support him because they follow her, all 6% or whatever she was carrying. That could potentially put Santorum on the right track, or she could try to pick up somebody who could gain in the polls from her rather than trying to cement a frontrunner status like what Santorum will be trying to do. She could try to give a come-from-behind win to, say, a Perry or a Gingrich. But I failed to see her supporting Perry, especially after she laid out the attacks, the Gardasil attacks. That was really her thing in the Republican debates, and I don't think she likes Gingrich. So her choices are rather limited. And it'll be interesting to see what she does over at least the next week, if she holds off or she ends up picking somebody. I'm sure she's getting all kinds of contact from the current campaigns looking for her to throw her support to one of them. But let's talk for a little bit about Rick Santorum. I met Rick Santorum at the Value Voters Summit earlier this year, and to be honest, I wrote him off. He was a nice guy, but he looked nervous on the debate stage. I just didn't see him having a chance of winning. I wasn't impressed with his speech. It was a little rambling. I loved his story, though. His family is impressive, and his track record as a pro-life congressman and a pro-life senator is impressive. But I didn't see him having any chance as a national contender. So after last night, I started doing a little digging. He said in his victory speech, which he can say it's a victory speech, to be honest, because he overcame rather low numbers. And even though he didn't technically win, this is a huge deal for the Santorum campaign to come out of nowhere, which, to be honest, has happened several times this primary season alone. You got your Herman Cain and whatnot. But this time it actually means something. It actually is going to translate to votes on a national stage. The question, of course, is how on earth he pulled off the Iowa win. Real Clear Politics takes a look at how on earth he managed to get from 6th place in the polls as recently as 10 days ago. And he was the poorest financed, but he was almost certainly, they say, the hardest working. Quote, he made a show of visiting all 99 counties in Iowa, making some 381 speeches or town hall meetings. He worked his butt off on the campaign trail in Iowa. That's the biggest reason why he won, is because he probably talked to everyone in the state, the amount of work he put into getting that state on his side. Now, Santorum was born in Winchester, Virginia. He was raised in Berkeley County, West Virginia, and Butler County, Pennsylvania. He served in the House from 1990 from Pennsylvania, and then from 95 to 2007, he served in the Senate. Now, in the House, he was part of the Gang of Seven that exposed the congressional banking and post office scandals that were rather big deals and brought down some big names. And he also served for 8 years on the Senate Armed Services Committee. He likes to throw up as his foreign policy cred, his experience dealing with the post 9/11 world and turning in the intelligence community from a Cold War community into a post 9/11 focus on the war on terror community. Santorum, he's married to Karen, and they have 7 kids together. Karen was a NICU nurse, a neonatal intensive care unit nurse, for 9 years. Santorum is the father of 7 children, and is also the father of a little boy named Gabriel, who passed away 2 hours after he was born. And that's one of the biggest reasons why Santorum is pro-life. To be honest, that's the biggest thing I knew him for, is he was such a social conservative. He was one of the most outspoken candidates I know on the issues of marriage, on the issues of abortion and life, cloning, all of that. That was his shtick. That's what I knew him for. I didn't know him for anything else other than that. And I thought, there's no way he can win on that. That's not, I mean, let's be honest. I'm a single issue voter when it comes to abortion. If you're not anti-abortion, if you're not pro-life, if you don't have pro-life values, I'm not interested in you. That's just how it is. That's how important it is to me, that you can't be pro-murder and get my support. But you also have to be more than just pro-life. And to be honest, when I wrote him off, that's all I knew him for. So I started doing some digging, and he's put out a couple of things that intrigue me. His tax reform is very Reagan-esque. The 10 and 28% tax brackets, which is what Reagan had. He wants to eliminate the death tax. He wants to lower capital gains and dividend tax rates. That's all pretty much standard Republican stuff. The question, though, is whether or not he's going to become a Mike Huckabee, where you have the rising star who wins Iowa and not much else. If Santorum continues his efforts on the ground, there's a very good chance that he could take New Hampshire if he pushes it. With the spotlight now on him, he's going to be getting a lot of flack. But he could theoretically do some damage in New Hampshire, if not take first, at least finish in the top 2, top 3, and that would be a big deal for him. It would be huge because it would mean he has some staying power beyond Iowa. And if he does the same things he did in Iowa, where he visits all the counties, makes all sorts of stops, the numbers here were... let's see here, 381 speeches and town hall meetings. If he can manage to keep that up in New Hampshire and kind of endear the people to him like he did in Iowa, wow, that could make a difference as far as winning some support there and getting some delegates on his side. Because we don't really know what's going to happen to the Iowa delegates until they hold their state convention. Actually, later in the year, they're one of the latest states to actually choose their delegates and send them out. And choose who they're going to be supporting. So Santorum is he's a rising star, but I shun from actually calling him the new frontrunner, because this is what happened to Huckabee, and Huckabee peaked and he was gone. He's going to have to put some boots on the ground in New Hampshire and treat New Hampshire like he treated Iowa, where he was way behind the poll numbers and managed to make an incredible comeback because he worked the people so much. But the problem with that is burnout by the time he gets to later states. But hopefully by then he could pick up that kind of momentum, at least hopefully for his campaign. He could pick up the momentum that would propel him, and he wouldn't have to do that anymore. But if it comes down to the wire, I don't know how he's going to be able to do that without getting burnt out. Well, be sure to look for me next week. I'll be talking about the subject of honest graft in a new book that you really do need to read. It's absolutely fantastic, and it had me seething mad. It was an eye-opener. So be sure to check that out. Post it on my blog, modicumofinsanity.blogspot.com. You can catch up with what my latest ramblings and thoughts are, and find the recording next week sometime. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Cody Holt.